What's up, Broncos country? Welcome to another edition of Altitude Advantage, our last one from right here on the porch of West Virginia. Are you sad?
I am sad. I really enjoyed it here. This was a great trip as we're recording this. Still a couple days to go here, but I think it's been good for the team. A lot of team bonding and time to spend together. You're just like away from everything out here. And when I think we talked about it, like we've been doing a lot of work this week, but it just feels different than when you're in Denver and there's all these other constraints and things pulling on you, and you've got to figure out your evening routine or whatever.
Yep.
Here you just, I think for us, we eat, work, go to sleep, do it again the next day. And I think for the players too, that's kind of what it is too. And so I think the focus is really high. I think they've turned the page from a big win last week against the Buccaneers, and I think they're going to be ready to go for New York.
Yeah, I took it as a sign that while we were waiting for practice to be over, I saw a bunch of horses.
Oh.
I took that as a sign. I'm just saying. I don't know what that sign means, but I took it as a good sign.
Yeah, and you were excited about the horses. I was like, we got to go do the press conferences.
I know. They pulled me
But the
away.
horses were...
Sadness. But you know what else I'm excited about? YouTube comments. And I know you pulled up some good ones. So what do we have on the West Virginia version of Altitude Advantage comment section?
Yeah, we got a lot of good comments on the Broncos official YouTube page. One comment was about the audio. Listen, we got AC units pumping in cool air for these lovely cottages we're staying in.
Yes, the humidity is at, what is it?
It's like 90-something%.
It's like 91.
We got lawnmowers in the background. We got vans driving by. I mean, we're out in it.
Yeah.
Elisa, this is not a podcast studio. This is the real world. So bear with us on the audio. We appreciate our production team. They've been. Our guy Aaron Gunning is setting us up.
That's true. I feel like we just needed rocking chairs.
Any chair's a rocking chair if you believe, I guess.
This is actually very true. We have golf carts rolling by. I mean.
Yeah.
So.
I did golf on Tuesday.
Did you really?
I did. It was lovely. I had a nice time. Anyway, we'll get to the YouTube comments. Again, Broncos official YouTube page. Go read a comment. We will read them, if I can read them, right here on the air. We've got some questions this week, some other good comments. So I'm going to read through some of them. Jeremy 1 says, this was before, some of these are going to start before the Bucs game, and then we'll go to after the Bucs game.
Oh, man.
Jeremy 1, we need to give Bo more time. He needs literally a whole season to learn. I think he'll learn faster playing in the actual games instead of on the bench. Go Broncos. Jeremy? Good point. We saw it against Tampa. Jolly Green, full steam. This is before Tampa. A win? LMAO. Yeah, right. Wouldn't be surprised if they go winless. Jolly Green, full steam. You don't know anything.
Joke's on you.
Yeah, they went out there and they kind of smacked Tampa around. So we'll see if they can get another win, get to 2-2.
Yep.
Jay Barson says, as an LA Broncos fan, I appreciate your perspective, Elisa. I love going to Chargers-Broncos games and having Broncos fans fill it up. Are there any other stadiums where you guys have seen the Broncos fans outnumber home fans?
Ooh.
It's a good question.
That's
I think anytime we go somewhere that you don't go a lot. Mm-hmm. So any NFC team, basically, I think you tend to see more Broncos fans.
Yeah.
Even in Dallas back in 2021, that was a time where the Broncos won that game convincingly, and you could tell there were a lot of Broncos fans there. Certainly when we go play the Raiders, there's a lot of Broncos fans there. I assume that...
and not only do they go to the Raiders game, they wear orange to those Raiders. So they... purposely
they stand out against the silver and black. I assume that J.A. Barsons is talking about SoFi.
Yes.
But
and that happens for the Rams and the Chargers.
Yeah.
Broncos country really shows out for when either of those teams are playing at SoFi Stadium.
But StubHub, when the Chargers were there for a couple of years,
man, yeah.
there are a lot of 70-80% Broncos fans. Qualcomm, the last game, my intern year here was the first year that the Broncos, or the last year, that the Broncos played at Qualcomm. And, man, it was like all Broncos fans. It was wild. So those are a few. But, yeah, any NFC team, you got the logo, I got the logo. Anytime the Broncos don't play there that much, I think you see people show up, make a trip out of it. And as Sean Payton said, this is one of the teams that travels well.
Yes, it is. Shout out to you, Broncos country.
There was a Bulwark Ty says, I appreciate the views you guys have shared. It's good to see people with a realistic, logical take. P.S. Go Broncos. This is the week. Yep, you're right, Bulwark. Justin Tavares, good info, great chemistry. Thank you so much for listening. Zach with a C, former Neutral Zone listener, has now made the jump. Said, can we get an awkward questions with Aric segment?
Oh, yes.
Can't wait to get the phone lines popping. I don't know what that means. I'm not awkward, so maybe the questions are awkward.
How about submit your awkward questions on our comment section, and I will gladly
We'll
ask
read
them.
Zach with a C also.
I will read them to you so you can answer.
Okay. Zach with a C says, the kiddo is great. He had a baby a couple years ago that would make some appearances in previous voicemails he left. So, Zach, great to hear that the kid is doing well. Mr. Presso, Elisa got to get herself some quarter zips.
Yeah.
We'll work on it.
I just have I know.
Getting you in there slowly.
I need more swag.
Okay, here's some questions. J. Prez Bronk, this is for you. Would you rather drown in mayo or mustard?
Oh. If I'd rather try mayo and mustard. You know, I'm lying, so I'm going to go with a little bit of spice. I'll go with mustard.
Mustard?
Yeah.
I think that's way less disgusting.
Mustard?
Yeah, mayo would.
Mayo, I just feel like.
I would throw up and then drown.
Yeah.
Monica says, Elisa's swag shirts are vicious. Where's Eric's no-fly swag shirts? Wear it on your chest, bro.
Say it with your chest. Sorry.
Okay. One more from J. Prez Bronk here. Would you trade one of your organs for a Super Bowl win?
Yeah, the one that I only need one of. Was that your kidney?
Yeah, that's what I was talking to our friend Susanna, who works for our content team, about this, and I said, a kidney, absolutely.
Yeah. Take it.
Take it. Maybe like a nice gallbladder.
Oh, yeah.
People get those taken out all the time. There are a lot of organs. I'd trade multiple organs for a Super Bowl, I think. Yeah. Okay, and now from after the win. So people are fired up. They're ready to go. That Jolly Green Giant guy is gone. He's too afraid to comment. Stacy Pohl, personally, I love the show. I think Miss Hernandez. Ooh, you got a Miss Hernandez.
Ooh.
It's kind of nice.
It's because, we're in West Virginia.
Yeah, that's true. Elevated.
Elevated.
Yeah, is great. Eric is always ready to share his knowledge. Spelled my name wrong. That's fine. It's okay. Stay away from them back roads, says Woofy2619.
Oh, I tried not to leave the porch as much as I possibly could.
It's very nice. I went out in the pouring rain, played golf all by myself. It was lovely. The leaves are starting to turn. There's no one around for miles.
I will say, Eric did ask me if I saw any wildlife. And I said, yeah, I saw a really big spider and I saw a really big wasp. And he's like, that's not wildlife. And I said, for me, it is. It's wildlife.
Yeah, I don't know that counts. The exception 452. Bo Broncos beat the Baker-Neers to win the Battle of the Puns.
Smooth.
I like that.
Smooth.
That's really nice. And then Quentin Caldwell shouted me out for being an NC native. East Coast shout out. Canadian Rebel. NC Broncos represent.
It's a lot of representation.
A lot of represent. Kenny Miller says, get me a Broncos gnome. We talked about the gnomes.
The gnome painting, yeah.
I didn't make it over to the gnome shack.
I got
Did
lost.
you?
I got
You
lost.
got lost.
I got lost.
Okay. Just a couple more here. Sean Jackson said, I saw Eric at the game. He waved at me. Want to have a job like him?
Okay, first of all, let's take a quick break there because I have been introduced to Eric Mania and the fact that fans literally scream his name like he is a WWE superstar, which apparently he is. They're like, Eric! Eric! And I'm just like, oh, they're talking to you. They don't care about me. And then he does the Prince Henry way. Hello.
No.
Hello, everyone.
I'm always happy. I love seeing people, and especially at road games, it's fun.
The Prince is also very happy to see people. That does not help your case. He's very famous, and it happened a few times. Happened at the team hotel. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So.
But no, I appreciate everyone listening. It's always nice to meet people. Yeah, we talked to some people at the team hotel that had listened to the show for a long time. It's great to get to hear what people are thinking and see if we're on the right track or not.
Especially in the real world.
Yeah,
like in the real world.
Yeah, out away from West Virginia. Yeah. No one's recognized me at the Greenbrier. And last one, CryptoGen says, love the show, especially after a W. Same here.
Yeah.
If other people want to chime in with comments, questions for us, please leave them on the Broncos official YouTube page on our Altitude Advantage podcast. We will get to them in next week's episode,
Yeah.
it's almost time to talk about the Broncos.
Almost time.
I know people, some people love the nonsense, as we call it. Other people don't. That's why we have time codes. That's why they exist.
Yes. That's how we mix it in. We mix it in. It's all about balance.
But before we get there, Elisa, I have a special surprise for you.
Oh, no. What?
We talked about learning what West Virginia is. And it's not just Virginia.
True. Okay.
I know there's a lot of California native. There's all these little states. I know it can be a lot to get on board with. So I figured, why not ask you some West Virginia trivia in front of the entire internet to see how much you know, how much that USC education paid off.
I got this job, so.
It's true. It's a good point. All right.
And is it multiple choice?
No, it's not.
It's open book?
All right. Where is West Virginia University located?
In West Virginia.
That is technically correct.
Yes.
That's technically correct.
Can I quit now so I'm undefeated? No.
Well, your city would have been good. Morgantown, West Virginia is where West Virginia University is. This one, I think you can at least give us a guess. How many states does West Virginia border?
Let's go with 5.
5 is correct.
Oh, look at that U.S. education peeking through the background.
It is bordered by Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Maryland to the north, Virginia to the south and east, and Kentucky to the west. Somehow touches Kentucky. I'm gonna say that wrong, so I'm not gonna read that one.
Oh, okay. Because you wouldn't want to get embarrassed on the internet.
Yeah. Okay. I'll read it then. What is the capital of West Virginia?
Oh, damn. We're embarrassing both of ourselves. I plead the fifth. I have no idea.
So it's spelled like Charleston. I believe it's pronounced Charlestown, even though it's
Charlestown.
spelled like Charleston. But I could have been led astray as a child and not know the correct pronunciation of that. So if you're from West Virginia and I'm just butchering your state capital, I apologize.
Well, shout out to the public school system.
Okay, just a couple more here.
All right.
What is West Virginia's nickname? Be careful here.
I have no idea. I'm just gonna, I don't know.
Okay, the Mountain State.
The Mountain State?
Apparently.
Really?
Yep. Okay, and last one for you.
Oh, God.
What city in West Virginia comes to mind when I say the Greenbrier Resort?
What city comes to mind?
We're here right now. What city are we in?
You know.
Should we move on to the football?
I just saw, all I know is this place called the Greenbrier. That's all I know. Greenbrier, West Virginia. Unless it's called, is it a trick question? The city's called Greenbrier? Because I don't actually know. Damn, that would have been good.
White Sulphur Springs.
White Sulphur Springs?
Yep.
Okay, I would have never got that. In my defense,
Okay,
my eyes were closed when we rolled into this area.
Elisa has not read any of my stories on DenverBroncos.com because the Dateline is in every story I've written this week. So that's a tough look.
I just scrolled down instantly. That's why. That's why. You know, I started off good. We should just stop after the first 2 questions, but.
All right, should we talk football?
Yeah, let's talk football. Let's talk the fact that I'm really proud that I knew that 5 states touched West Virginia, because it just felt right. All right. Well, the Broncos are getting ready to face the Jets. It's actually the first time they're heading back to MetLife Stadium for the first time since 2020. I had to look that up because I thought like 4 years, I'm like, wow, how is that correct? But it is. The last time they played was in 2020. The Broncos getting the upper hand in that game. There's a lot of changes that have happened since then. The biggest ones that we're going to talk about to kick off the show is obviously the loss of Alex Singleton. Head coach Sean Payton announced on Wednesday that he will be undergoing season-ending surgery in about 2 weeks, and he'll be gone for the remainder of the season. Such a big loss, not only from a team captain perspective, but a teammate and just what he's been able to do on the field so far, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say it's a rivalry with the Jets, but like they've certainly played a lot over the last few years. Yeah. And for those people who may say, okay, well, why have they not played in New York since 2020? And for those who remember, that was the Jerry Jeudy, his first career touchdown. He kind of goes up and mosses the guy. It was Brett Rippon's first career start. It was I think a Thursday night football game with nobody there because it was a COVID season. It was kind of bizarre.
COVID was crazy.
But the reason that they've all been in Denver is because you go every 3 years you switch between home and away on a certain rotation, and then do you finish in the same place in the division? And it's just so happened that the way the rotation has gone, they've all been in Denver. And so the Broncos and Jets have actually played several years in a row here. But yeah, you're right. First time to MetLife in quite a while. And like you said, doing it without Alex Singleton is going to be tricky. I view this loss as kind of threefold here. One, you've got the physical, the talent element of it. Alex Singleton is a heck of a football player. He's everywhere. He plays with his very long hair on fire. Yeah. His hair's longer than yours, Elisa, I think.
It's longer than mine.
I mean, we saw Clay Matthews and all those old, what was that, the Selsun Blue or something like that commercials.
Troy
exactly. Yeah. Alex Singleton should have one of those sponsorships too.
He should.
Maybe it was in the works. I don't know. But yeah, there's the physical element. He's all over the place. He cleans up a lot of tackles. Even if he doesn't bring the guy down initially, he's often there to put an initial hit on the guy to kind of break up the play. So they're going to miss that. He's just productive, right? He's tough. He played, there were 57 total snaps against the Buccaneers. He played 49 of those with a torn ACL.
Wow.
49 snaps with a torn ACL.
Yeah. I mean, pausing there for a second, we talked to some of the guys yesterday that were just impressed, and to the point where we thought something was off, but then he was fine, so we didn't really think anything of it. And, even Sean Payton had a lot to say about just how impressed he was. Obviously he doesn't recommend any player to do that, but that just shows the toughness of Alex Singleton.
Yeah, Sean Payton said he'd never seen anybody play that long on that sort of injury. And you see it happen sometimes where guys suffer an injury and the adrenaline gets them through, but still there's a toughness required there, not wanting to give up on your teammates and come out of the game. So there's that element that last year he had, I think 177 tackles. I mean, the most by a Bronco in a season since at least 1991 when they started tracking tackles. This is a guy that already was averaging more than 10 tackles a game. So he is kind of the center of your defense from a performance standpoint.
Yeah.
Then there's the emotional element. Yeah. He's one of your defensive captains, joining Pat Surtain. He's always getting guys fired up. Yeah. After a play, he's always screaming. He's always positive in the locker room, win or lose. It sounds like he'll still be around, so hopefully they can keep some of that emotional energy going from him. I'll be interested to see, obviously after surgery you got to be careful, but how quickly can he get back on the sideline at least to just be there for the guys?
Yeah. That physical presence, just seeing a guy like that to just give you those words of encouragement is really big, especially when you have some of the young defensive guys looking up to him.
Absolutely. And the last thing is, and kind of goes with the young guys, is the kind of mental side of things. After Josie Jewell left in free agency, Alex Singleton became the guy who has the green dot on his helmet. So he receives the play calls, communicates those to the defense, makes sure everybody's set. And really, that is where I'll be interested to see how this team adjusts, because Aaron Rodgers is the king of pre-snap and making sure that he identifies where the weakness is on your defense and picking on people. Or if you're not ready to go, boom, quick snap, throw it. And so whoever ends up with the green dot, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, I'd imagine somebody steps in alongside Cody Barton, because Cody Barton's been starting. We'll see kind of if that plays out that way or not. But it doesn't necessarily have to be Cody Barton, right, that gets a green dot. Previously, Justin Simmons wore the green dot as a safety at times. So do you want Brandon Jones wearing that green dot, PJ Locke? It'll be interesting to see kind of where they go there. But whoever takes over that responsibility, they've got to be kind of locked in, especially this week against a team like the Jets with Aaron Rodgers back there, because he's one of those quarterbacks that if you don't know what you're doing, he's going to pick you apart. So that's where, to me, it's not the physical, it's not the emotional, even though those two things are big. It's the mental of, can somebody come in there? And we've seen, Elisa, very few communication breakdowns on defense. Yep. The one I can think of was against Seattle, where the running back kind of slipped out and was able to get free. I think Singleton and Riley Moss were not quite sure which guy was going to pick it up. It was a well-designed play to kind of draw them away, but that was the one communication breakdown, whereas you see some teams have a lot of those.
Yeah.
And for the Broncos to play well and continue this defensive standard, which has been really good. I mean, they're second or third in yards allowed. They're in the top 10 in points allowed, really high in sacks, takeaways.
Yeah.
So for them to continue that, somebody's got to make sure that they're all on the same page.
Yeah, and after practice yesterday, Pat Surtain talked about that specifically. He was asked, when a guy like Alex Singleton is out, does that, even though you're not playing the same position, things like that, does that put more motivation for you to want to be better? And he said, of course, like, he says not only does he want to be better on the field, but now he knows that in the locker room, he has to step it up a little further and be a strong voice in there and talk to young guys. And he did credit, Alex, even though he's hurt right now, talking to the linebackers, making sure that they were good here. And you wouldn't think that his season was over because he was just in such a positive mood. And I feel like that really helps this defense going into Sunday's game, because if you have your team leader, sad or just like really down and out, then that kind of trickles down. That kind of positivity, regardless of how he truly feels on the inside, really kind of feeds into the guys. Be like, you know what? Look at our team captain, whose season is over, is dealing with this injury, is going to have to recover. Of course, they all wish him the well in his recovery, but it's like, look at his attitude, look at his mentality. Let's go get this win that much more for our team captain.
Yeah, and I think Surtain is right that his leadership will probably need to become a little more vocal.
Yeah.
They're going to need that from him. Sean Payton did say they don't plan to replace a captain just because Singleton is injured. Doesn't, still, like, they earned it as captains, and you hope that Singleton keeps that going despite not being on the field. I do think guys around Pat, including Pat, will need to step their games up a little bit.
Yeah.
Bo Nix said it well when he was asked about it and said, you can't replace Alex Singleton, but you can rise up around him.
Yep.
And so, can the D-line get there a little bit quicker so that whoever replaces Singleton doesn't have to cover a running back quite as long? Can defensive linemen plug the gaps to make it easier for those linebackers? Or can, corners come up and run support too? There's all sorts of ways that if everybody just elevates their game a little bit, it can help. It is worth noting that as we're recording this, we're not quite sure who's going to step in for Singleton. Sean Payton said there's 2 or 3 different directions they want to go, or they could go, and they'll kind of see how it plays out. Not interested in revealing that, obviously. You don't want to just give the Jets a free week to say, okay, well, we know what they're doing there. So obviously some strategy involved there, but you could, obviously on the active roster, in addition to Cody Barton, who has been playing next to Singleton, you have Christian Welch, signed after the preseason, who played in Green Bay. You have Justin Cernad, who is a longtime special teams contributor, special teams, not special times.
It is special times here.
That's kind of silly, huh?
No, it's special times here.
Special teams contributor as an option. And then just signed 2 veteran inside linebackers in Quan Alexander, who Sean Payton has coached before, and Zach Cunningham, who's had a lot of experience as well. So those guys are on the practice squad. We'll see what the Broncos do, but kind of a handful of options, and we'll kind of see how it all plays out. But it is, I just think, again, the guys around them have to play better. You can't expect Christian Welch, Justin Cernad, Quan Alexander, Zach Cunningham. You can't expect just one of those guys to come in and instantly be Alex Singleton. You've got to find a way to, and maybe they rotate through multiple guys, especially this week as they're trying to figure out what is the best path forward.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see how they really tackle Aaron Rodgers and how they're able to really disrupt this Jets offense, especially with Breece Hall and those kind of things. Jumping to the Broncos running back situation, 2 things we want to talk about. One, Tyler Beatty is now, pronounces it Tyler Bidet.
Bidet.
Yes. Because I got people like, that's not how you say it. Actually, we spoke to him directly. It's Bidet.
It's Bidet.
It's Bidet. Confirmed directly from Tyler. But he just got promoted to the 53-man roster. Obviously going to complement what Jaleel McLaughlin was able to do and Javonte Wynn and all those things. So when you look at a guy like that who's really been kind of pushing, what does kind of like that new blood infusion do for a running game that's still, getting in rhythm and getting things going?
Yeah, I think it gives them another option, right, which is important. The Broncos last week kind of passed so that they could run, which is interesting. A lot of times you see teams run to set up the pass, and it was kind of the opposite. I think that made sense based on how the first 2 games went, where teams were playing close to the line of scrimmage. They're basically daring you to beat them in the passing game. And so the Broncos were facing a bunch of stacked boxes, and it's hard, no matter who you are, to run when you've got 8 guys up in the box. And so the Broncos needed to throw the ball down the field, get those safeties, get those corners to back up a little bit. Now we got more golf carts, bicycles driving. It's lovely. You never know what's going to happen.
I legit thought they had ducks with them. I was like, quack, quack, quack.
Thought they had ducks?
Like, yeah.
Oh,
they did not have
possible.
ducks.
I think it was.
They did.
It's exciting.
It's very exciting.
But you need those guys to back up so that you can run the football. I think all 3 guys, and we're talking about Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Tyler Bidet, will benefit from the increased efficiency in the downfield passing game because they're all going to have bigger lanes now.
Yeah.
Bo Nix was quick to point out that just because Bidet is coming up, like Javonte and Jaleel are still going to play a big role. I know you caught up with Jaleel McLaughlin. You can hear that on Broncos Weekend coming out this weekend.
Yep.
It'll be on the Broncos YouTube channel on Saturday morning. But I think Bidet, one of the things that impressed me is just he played 13 snaps, I think, and got 9 carries. So pretty, like, when he's in there, he got his opportunities, broke off a big one. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, if you take out the big rush of 41, 43, whatever it was, he's averaging 3.5, 4 yards a carry. And it's like, well, that's true. So that's not, like, otherworldly. But you can't take out the big one because so much of a running game that is consistent and powerful is like 3 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards, boom, 20 yards, then 3 yards, 5 yards, boom, 40 yards.
Yeah.
And like part of a good running game is that you wear down the other team.
Yep.
And so, yes, if you take out that big chunk run, Bidet had 8 carries for, I think it was like 27 yards. It wasn't spectacular.
Right.
But I really do think that that chunk play has to be considered a big part of it, and that, like, if you run the ball effectively and you keep going and you push on teams and lean on teams, you end up in a spot where you're going to find that sort of success. Another element of Bidet's game that I think is impressive is yards after contact.
Okay.
There's 2 elements that make a good run, right? Like how far can the offensive line push the other team off the ball to give you that run lane?
Yep. To create space for you to
create
run through.
space. And then after you're hit, what can you make out of it? And like that's what Javonte Williams was so good at his rookie year. And you've seen flashes of it a little bit as he comes back from injury still. But that was impressive from Bidet, is that a lot of those yards came after contact. I thought he showed good vision. There was one time where there was a cutback lane that was small. He found it, hit it. It wasn't a huge run. Again, it was like 5, 6, 7 yards.
Yeah.
But it showed impressive vision that I think speaks well for what he can do moving forward. So excited about all those guys. Hopefully they can help Bo Nix. And certainly they'll need to run the ball well. It's going to be a challenge against this Jets front that's really talented.
Yeah. And when I caught up with Jaleel yesterday, I asked him specifically about that. I said, how do you guys prepare for these tough defenses? Broncos have not had an easy road when they're facing really tough defenses week in and week out. Seattle Seahawks defense, the Steelers defense, the Bucs defense, although with key injuries on there. But now they're facing this Jets defense. And so I asked him, I said, how do you mentally prepare to get ready to face this defense? And he chuckled and he's just like, have you seen our defense? He's like, we have to go up against those guys every single day. And you mentioned some of the stats that they've had, top 10 in sacks, top 10 takeaways and things like that. And so he kind of said, like, we're going against a really good defense in practice every single day. Those guys are flying around. Those guys are trying to tackle us, and we have to find ways to get past them. And he's like, that is the best test that we can have week in and week out when we're getting ready to go against him. And that was a really good point because this Broncos defense is filled with so many great players that have really made an impact since week 1. And so I think when I asked him, like, okay, so how are you guys using this week to really kind of prepare for the Jets? Jaleel McLaughlin is out really, really early, way before us, on the field, rain or shine, he's out there, and he said that it's just part of his routine, and that's what he does back in Denver, and he's like, I had to do it here, and so a lot of the guys are kind of like, it's raining. He's just out there.
All week.
Yeah, and he's just out there. But that kind of determination, again, with this quarterback rotation really trickles down. Tyler Bidet had good things to say about him as well. So I think when you're trying to get the running game going and you realize, like, this team is going against a really, really good defense during practice. So seeing the real thing, seeing another thing, another strong defense on Sunday is not as scary.
Yeah,
in a way.
I can see that to some degree, but this is a really good defense. I mean, and I know the Broncos are a really good defense too, but it just
mind over matter.
It's just a tough challenge, and
yes.
especially from like the dudes that they have.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like if I were doing like a dudes rating, like
dudes rating.
Yeah, like this team's got some dudes. Like
okay.
On the dudes rating, the Jets are up there in terms of they got some dudes. Sauce Gardner.
Yes.
Quinnen Williams.
Yep.
Will McDonald is second in the league in the sacks. Obviously, they lost Jermaine Johnson to a torn Achilles, so that, I don't want to say helps the Broncos because that sounds insensitive, but like he's not out there playing, so they're a little bit, they've lost some guys. Obviously, Hassan Reddick is not playing still. But this defense, they can kind of bring it from different places, which is what makes it challenging, and we talked about that with Pittsburgh, right? They've got guys at all levels. They've got Minka.
Yep.
They've got Patrick Queen. They've got
TJ.
TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. Like, they can bring it from everywhere.
Yeah.
The Jets are a little bit similar in that regard, just in terms of, like, McDonald off the edge. He's going to be a tough challenge for whichever tackle is forced to block him.
Yes.
Quinnen Williams, Sean Payton said, is basically the most disruptive interior force in the entire league.
Wow.
And
high praise there.
And you look at what gives quarterbacks trouble sometimes. It's not always the edge pressure because especially Bo against the Bucs, when there was edge pressure, you saw him kind of scoot away, get out of it, do a little duck and run for 22 yards. He was able to do that. When the pressure is in your face and the pocket, it becomes difficult to then step up and throw. So that, more than anything, is a matchup that I'm going to be watching, is how do Luke Wattenberg and then either Quinn Miners or Ben Powers handle Quinnen Williams and make it so that Bo Nix has time to throw in the pocket. But even when he has time to throw, it's a really good defense. And they got Sauce Gardner, who with Pat Surtain is right up there as one of the best cornerbacks in the entire league. He is a physical. I mean, we've heard Surtain talk about, like, I'm a physical player. I'm going to keep playing like that. Surtain's really physical.
Yeah.
I mean, Sauce is really physical. There's a play from a couple years ago where there's a go ball to Cortland Sutton in the end zone, and Sauce is all over him, and he just kind of like dares you to call that PI. It wasn't called. The Jets won the game. But that is a challenge there. Got a really good nickel. I mean, this is a good football team, especially on defense. And from Bo Nix, I think what you need to see, Elisa, is I don't know that it's going to be as, I don't want to say easy, like that's not the right word, but I think that it's going to be a grind to some degree. Like, can you still get those quick passes out? Can you establish the run? You've got to avoid turnovers. You've got to avoid the killer sacks.
Yeah.
I think Bo has done better and better each week at that, but this is a week where to win the football game, you've got to avoid those negative plays and just find a way to kind of stay in the game.
Yeah, the Broncos and Jets defense each rank in top 4 in pass defense in 2024, so they're kind of neck and neck in there. The Broncos just allowing 133.3 passing yards per game, which is second in the NFL, and 5.1 pass yards per attempt, which is third in the NFL. So, and that's a big testament to shutting down some of the key receivers on the opposite side. So going into Bo Nix a little bit, you've mentioned it, and you've really been a champion for kind of calming the waters of the expectations of Bo Nix. But I feel what he did on Sunday, scoring on the first drive, being able to get his running backs mixed in, Jaleel McLaughlin getting his first touchdown of the season, and even just being able to get out of situations that a lot of quarterbacks can't. You actually asked him about that yesterday when he kind of learned. He got a good question from Bo Nix, I'm just saying. But
put in that tally.
Yes, you asked him when he was able to kind of learn how to maneuver out.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an innate sense that some quarterbacks have and some don't, and Bo seems to have it.
Yeah.
Right. We haven't seen him knock on. We got a lot of.
We got a lot of wood.
He hasn't taken like that big hit yet that you sometimes see rookies have when their like internal clock is not quite right.
Yeah.
He's
so
avoided.
Welcome to the NFL hit.
Yeah, he knock on wood hasn't really had that yet, and so he's got a really great internal clock in terms of when do I need to tuck it and run, when do I need to step up. When do I need to throw it away? I thought he was better against the Bucs of just throwing it away. He had a great play that is underrated on that 2-minute drive where it was a throwaway, but maybe in week 1 he takes a sack there, and you get pushed back to the edge of field goal range. So having that sort of awareness for Bo is going to be important against the Jets. I would say this: Bo has taken a step each of the 3 weeks, and I anticipate him to continue to play very comfortably, to look more and more calm, to look in rhythm. That said, progress is not linear always, and you do see even veteran quarterbacks make mistakes. So I do, this is a tough defense. If Bo, has a tough play or a tough series, again, that doesn't mean that the progress is not there. And it's possible that he goes out and continues to, maybe he's just as efficient as he was against the Buccaneers, but this defense, I think, poses challenges because they drop so many guys. The Bucs try to bring pressure, and Bo was good at figuring that out. The Jets just bring pressure with 4 guys and kind of say, hey, we're going to drop 7, figure it out. Yeah. That's a test for a rookie quarterback. So I'm really, this is, and we've said it each week, but this is as big a test as he's going to have all year, and so I'm excited to see how he handles that. I think this is going to be a really good look at where Bo Nix is in his development. And listen, if you asked him, he would probably say, I'm not really concerned about where I am in my development. I want to win. Right. So that's part of it too, is can Bo Nix play at a level, maybe get his first passing touchdown, play at a level where the Broncos can earn a win over the Jets.
Well, defensive end John Franklin Myers talked about that getting that first is always the hardest. The first sack, the first win, first tackle, and then after that, you kind of get that monkey off your back, and you're kind of like, okay, we reset, we got it, we got over that part, because there's still a couple winless teams in the NFL right now. And so I think once you're kind of past that first hurdle, then you can kind of build on that. Speaking of just Bo having a really, tough start to this season, he's played 3 games on the road this month, or you're going to play, with New York being the third. So you start the season on the road, you go home for 1 game, then you're back on the road. We're here in West Virginia, which I think was beneficial for this team, and then you're back on the road again. So to your point, that is a very long stretch for a young rookie quarterback to kind of not be really to get settled in his own just yet. But the good part of that is that this road trip ends, and then the Broncos have 3 home games in October. And I feel like that can be very beneficial for his continued development.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if you can win this week and you go home at 2-2 after starting the season 0-2 with tough losses, albeit to teams that are currently, as we record this, 3-0. It's not like they lost to Seattle and now Seattle's sitting at 1-2. Good football teams that they lost to. The Broncos do have a real chance, and I know that I've talked before about a lot of this season is figuring out what do you have in Bo Nix, but if you can find a way to get this win, even if you don't, you go back to 2 home games, and you're still right in this. I mean, currently, I believe the 7 seed in the AFC has 1 win, and so, I do think that the home games offer a chance to get some rhythm, but also, you're going to be right in this now because of that win in Tampa Bay, so that's important. You did mention John Franklin Myers.
Yeah, and that's not him rumbling back there, just so you guys are aware.
We got an army of lawnmowers.
Heading out to lawnmowers, just heading out. I don't really know where they're going, but that was pretty loud.
It's a big grounds.
Yes, I will say.
A lot of grass to mow.
Yes, John Franklin Myers. Before we get into the football side of him, he's a character.
He's funny.
Yes, and he spent 4 years with the Jets before coming to the Broncos, and he's going to face his former team, which is obviously a storyline. And the best storyline that came out of practice yesterday was they asked him, how have you been enjoying the Greenbrier in West Virginia? He was like, oh man, Aric alluded to it earlier, where he's like, we basically just work, eat. He was like, I think I ate 14 times yesterday. And we're like, okay, what's the best way? He's like, I had a really good chicken sandwich here. And he was just happy. And when you see something and you're away from distractions, and it could be simple distractions, like, I have to put gas in the car today. I have to go do this. I have to go to the store. When you eliminate all those things, especially going against a big matchup this week, I feel like, JFM is really dialed in to this matchup.
Yeah, and this is a team that, and to be fair, JFM, when he was asked, like, what's it like going against your team, he said, this is just another game.
Yeah.
And so
it's business.
I can appreciate that mindset for JFM. But the reality is that they traded for Hassan Reddick and basically said, we can't afford JFM anymore. And so they sent JFM to Denver. And JFM, when he got here, was talking a lot about, I'm excited to be in a place that is excited to have me. And so there's got to be a little extra there.
A little chip on your shoulder.
But he's, again, a good player. This defensive line in general, Elisa, is going to have to play well against Aaron Rodgers. We talked before a little bit about replacing Singleton, but I think when you face Aaron Rodgers, there's two things that the Broncos are going to have to be really kind of dialed in about. One is the blitz. Rodgers, really good.
Played pretty well against
the
that
blitz.
last week. Yep.
Against New England, you have the numbers.
I do.
There.
I do have the numbers.
I think 8 of 11 against the blitz.
Yeah, he went versus the blitz. He went 8 for 11 with 91 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions.
And like a passer rating of 120 something.
Yeah, that was a passer rating. I believe it was like 138 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty. 136.7.
And I think a lot of that is with a veteran quarterback. When you know where the pressure is coming from, you're able to kind of pick it apart. So it'll be interesting. We hear Vance Joseph talk a lot about it's about when you blitz. It's about how you blitz. It's not just blitz, blitz, blitz.
Yeah.
The Broncos currently do have a 50% blitz rate, which is the highest in the NFL. It's been really efficient, obviously.
Right.
They sacked Baker Mayfield seven
times.
They're in the top 10 in sacks this season. So the pressure has been getting there.
Yeah.
I think what'll be interesting is when you watch Denver against Tampa Bay, some of these blitzes were exotic, right? Like they'd send a bunch of different people, and then other snaps they'd drop everybody but 2 rushers. They'd drop the defensive ends. And so as a quarterback, you're not really sure where it's coming from. I think that sort of disguise, that sort of like the ability to mix it up is going to be really important against Rodgers. And then you just got to make sure you get home, because if you blitz and you don't get there,
he's going to make you pay for it.
He's going to make you pay.
Yeah.
I will say you've got Surtain back there, who we just gave Sauce some love. Surtain's playing as well as anybody in the entire league. Just shut down Mike Evans last week. So if you blitz and Surtain's blanketed on Garrett Wilson, we'll see how much he travels. It's kind of been back and forth so far this year. Really was on DK and Mike Evans for most of those games. Not as much on George Pickens, because they moved Pickens to the slot a little bit in week 2. So it'll be interesting to see how much Surtain covers Wilson. But if Vance Joseph has the trust in Surtain to say, and Surtain upholds that and can kind of shut down or limit Garrett Wilson, and then you've got 6 guys coming at Rodgers. Riley Moss has been playing really well. Like, maybe that is a recipe where you can find some success. It's got to start, though, against the run.
Yeah.
Because Breece Hall has played like a monster against the Broncos. I believe like 250-ish rushing yards against the Broncos over the last 2 games. He tore his ACL the first time he faced Denver in Denver, came back the next year, had 177 yards last year. The Broncos all offseason got to be better against the run. Got to be better against the run. This is the week where you prove it. It's going to be tough without Alex Singleton, but if you can stop Breece Hall, put them in some 3rd and longs, find a way to get some stops, maybe get a turnover, then you've got a chance to really be in this matchup, perhaps steal another road win. But if Breece Hall runs wild and then Rodgers can just kind of dink and dunk on 3rd and short, it's going to be tough from a defensive perspective.
Well, touching on a few of those things, Rodgers actually did not attempt a pass over 20 yards in week 3. And he actually threw his first. This was a stat I did not see coming. That Garrett Wilson was the first receiver that was drafted in the 1st round to catch a touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers, which is just insane given, one, how long Aaron Rodgers has been in this league and the good receivers that he's had around him, but the fact that you're looking at a guy and it's like, well, Garrett Wilson and him are starting to get things going, but the fact that he did not attempt to pass over 20 yards is interesting to me. Also, Aaron Rodgers this season has only been sacked 5 times going into week 4. And so they've been able to protect him fairly well, which obviously the Broncos are looking to disrupt. And the Broncos defense also kept the Buccaneers running backs from, I believe they kept them under 100 yards rushing in Sunday's win. So those are all little key recipes, ingredients, for a recipe for success. And Surtain has only allowed 6 receptions for 63 receiving yards as the nearest defender in coverage in 2024. So, they're kind of piecing those things together, and I feel the big win that they had on Sunday versus a good Bucs team has really kind of at least give them a huge confidence boost of what they're able to accomplish. If you can just do even a quarter of that against Aaron Rodgers in terms of just getting him and making him uncomfortable and taking away his weapon, there's a possibility for a win there.
Yeah, you definitely got to pressure him, and he's so good on the run. Like, don't let him get out of the pocket.
Yeah.
Zach Allen has been a monster. You've got to hope that he's able to do more of that. The one thing, Elisa, that you just cannot let happen, I can't stress this enough. I know Sean Payton is talking about it. I'm sure Vance Joseph's talking about it. Aaron Rodgers is better than anybody in NFL history at getting people to jump off sides and then tossing it deep. And he gets those free plays, and then he just chucks it deep.
Yeah.
They know, his receivers know, if you see that flag, go.
Yeah.
And he chucks it deep, and so many times you end up with a touchdown that it feels, I don't want to say cheap, because it's the rules, like you're allowed to do it.
Yes.
But it just like swings the game, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
In an instant.
That momentum shift.
It happened in 2019. The Broncos were at Lambeau, and it was early in Vic Fangio's tenure. The Broncos were in that game, and then it was at like the 50-yard line or so. Somebody jumped, and Rodgers just chucked it deep, like 50 yards, 55 yards, touchdown. And the Broncos, in a way, it was a huge momentum swing in that game. You cannot, under any circumstance, let that happen in this game where like you're in a tight game and then an edge rusher jumps off sides. If you're Riley Moss, if you're Pat Surtain, if you're PJ Locke, you got to be locked in and find a way to make sure that they don't get one of those easy ones, because you could play really well, you could play the whole football game really well.
Yeah.
That moment could mess things up for you. And I expect this one to be a tight football game where every possession is going to matter. You're going to maybe you need a score at the end, maybe you need a stop at the end. You can't let them get an easy one.
Yeah, and I think they kind of got a taste of that in week 1 and week 2 when they kind of let those touchdowns happen, and they even felt like every defensive player we talked to after those losses could pinpoint the exact thing. They were like, we missed a key communication this, or we weren't locked in and we made this mistake which led to a touchdown. And I think having those kind of growing pains, again, against 2 teams that are still undefeated, has them even more hyper aware of what can happen this week coming up. And I think as you're kind of going into this matchup as well, you don't want to get the free plays. They did play cleaner football in week 3, which was also a big focus point. Stopping the run, they were able to do that in week 3, which was another good focus point for this team. And with Peyton, he's no stranger to Aaron Rodgers and facing him and what he does. And I think having that experience of facing him, fairly often when he was with the Saints. I got a little stat for you.
Okay.
Let's
Hit
see.
me with it.
Head coach Sean Payton is 3-2 as a head coach versus Rodgers in his career, all while he was coaching with the Saints. And during those Payton coach team, Rodgers has posted 9 passing touchdowns, but 7 interceptions in 5 career games. And the Broncos are obviously top 10 in takeaways this season. So there's little ingredients there, again, that can hopefully be a recipe for success for this team. But I think you nailed it. It's just being aware of Aaron Rodgers has been in this league for a very long time, and he knows the ins and outs on how to catch you slipping.
Yeah, and I mean, like Bo Nix and Pat Surtain were talking about how cool it was for them to face Rodgers because they watched him growing up. It's just kind of wild how long he's been doing it. But at least I just think overall, when you look at this matchup, it is a big one. Everyone says that we've talked to that Bo Nix in particular, like, hey, we're treating this the same as any other week. We're locked back in. There's still things we want to do better. He said sometimes you can tell after a win, and obviously looking back at his time as Oregon is what he's talking about, where you feel guys slip a little bit. He said he did not feel that this week. He feels like the focus level, the energy level is at a really good place. We've talked about just how, I would just say straight up impressive it would be if the Broncos can get to 2-2 after the start to the season. You would basically be stealing 2 games on the road. I always kind of viewed of like, can you get to like 2-2 would be a tremendous start with Bo Nix with a rookie quarterback. I didn't think that it would go 0-2 then 2-2, but if you can do that, that would be spectacular. You'd be right in the mix. I will say, you may have caught the Bucs overlooking you a week ago. Jets are not going to do that this week. So you got to be ready to go. They know the challenge. The Jets know the challenge that's coming in. The Broncos started fast against Tampa. You have to do that again. Cannot fall behind this team. But yeah, make it a slugfest. Find a way when you get punched to just punch right back, as Sean Payton said against the Bucs, and see if you can't get another win this weekend.
Yeah, and fire on all cylinders, and that includes special teams, that includes defense, on offense. We have to give a shout out to Will Lutz, won AFC Special Teams Player of the Week, going 4 for 4 with 2 extra points. He talked about that a little bit, where he goes, obviously all we want to kick is extra points, but he's very happy that even when you drive down the field, we talked about this in Monday's podcast, when you take a big chunk of time off the clock, getting any points also works in your favor. So being able to trust your kicker is also good, especially when you're going to face a tough defense and you're going to maybe need to rely on your kicker a little more than usual. So I think, Will Lutz having the week that he's had coming off of that game, I think is also beneficial for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any edge you can get is important. Hopefully, again, knock on wood, with a kicker, it's always like you want to keep the good vibes going. So hopefully he can do that. But yeah, it is going to, you never know quite how a game's going to play out. I say this almost every week, but I would be surprised if this was a game that you won 26-7 again. Like, this to me feels like a slugfest, something that's going to come right down to the wire, and maybe it's Lutz that makes it happen.
We love a game-winning field goal. Kickers are people too,
I love kickers.
All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of Altitude Advantage from the Greenbrier in West Virginia. When we're back on Monday, we're going to be back in the studio.
That's what we think.
Oh, we think.
we gotta get back to. We gotta go to New York first.
Yeah, but when next time you see us, there will be no lawnmowers. There'll be no air conditioning.
Maybe if we win, we'll come right back.
Maybe we'll stay here another week. Maybe not. All right. Make sure you guys subscribe, comment, all those great things. We appreciate it. I'm your team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. This is your DenverBroncos.com lead writer, Aric DiLalla. And after this episode, I'm going to go read all of the articles. All the articles.
See you guys.